Ah, yes. I can see your problem quite clearly. You asked a blind man to look into a crystal ball. Though I admire your dedication, much like our character in our story tonight, he had to learn that dedication is a valuable trait. The hard way. In a tale known as the Lament of Discipline.
Owen Crawford, born September 1995, died June 2019. At least, the man he had been died when he fell into a forgotten chamber just outside of Cairo, Egypt. There, he had briefly met divinity, not in some petty pagan god or fearful Western ignorance, but with the true force that shaped the world. It scared him, it burned him, left him laying among ash and soot. The smoldering crater would be Owen's grave, as well as his cradle. He was pulled from it and laid out in a hospital. His body laid there in a cot, while his mind and spirit raced to keep up with the truth. She sailed across gulfs of time and space, looking for something. And then she went away. It wasn't his fault, not directly at least. When he woke in his bed, he recounted what had happened, unaware of the corrections that were already underway. In the coming days, he started to see more clearly. The time was wrong. Everything moves as prescribed until malign influences create errors. When he woke her, the time was wrong. It had been an accident, though, and in her infinite wisdom, she saw fit to give him a light punishment. It was a gift, really. This world was too corrupt to receive her. That's why she had to go away. But before departing, she had placed upon him her mark, a brand at the base of his skull on the back of his neck that he had learned is referred to as the radiant glyph. After leaving the hospital, he began to serve his penance. He tortured himself from dawn till dusk, working, training, slowly shedding his old self, the needless fat and hair. Some weaker-willed people would say he destroyed himself, becoming a slave to his own regiment. He could only scoff at them. They were too corrupt to understand. That was the point. He was rewarded for his discipline. He saw her again, sitting with regality and authority atop a throne of ice, looking down at the world. Finally clean, finally as it always should have been, with a muzzled and content populace. The vision drove him to a fit of inspiration. When not training or working, he hammered metal, bending it to his will, forcing it into submission, till at last he held what he saw in his dreams. In his hands he held what the world, what humanity, needed to become ready to receive her again. A muzzle. He wore it quite proudly, but it also festered a bitterness within him. Many people wore similar things, but it wasn't with respect to the truth. They called their muzzles masks, said that it was only temporary. Weak-willed, corrupt, filthy things. How dare they make a mockery of his faith? He knew it was selfish, but he wanted so badly to punish them, to drive the last breath from their lungs, to use their death cries as a hymn for the truth. How long did he sit alone in isolation, hating them, wanting to rend and shatter them. He saw them outside, online, each one trying to tell themselves they were fine, that they were okay now. Filthy liars. They were comfortable in their corruption. They would never change. The corruption could never go away, and she could never return. No amount of training or deadlifting would change that, which is why he was so happy when he received another vision. He saw himself towering over their broken bodies, the streets becoming rivers of unclean blood. He looked up into the understanding eyes of truth. The race of humanity was filthy, corrupt, undeserving of salvation. It deserved whatever indifferent euthanasia the universe would dole out to it someday. But he didn't. He felt her chilling, numbing touch. He was an exception, maybe the exception. She had graced him with her presence once again, only now with a new directive. It was June. He snickered at the alignment of dates, even though he knew that numbers were like baby's building blocks to her, if even that. But he allowed himself to be amused at the idea that she had specifically chosen this time because of its significance to him. The world was filthy, and it wasn't going to clean itself, so he would apply his hand. He stood on a hill, looking down onto a beach. He didn't know what the festival was for, but he hated it. It was noisy and colorful, dozens if not hundreds of filthy, worthless pests, draping themselves in identity, screaming unto the uninterested universe how much they matter. This was as good a place as any to begin the great work. As he walked down towards the festivities, something caught his eye. A tool shed, with an object leaning against it. He walked over and looked at it. It was a crowbar, just a simple tool in someone's hand, just like him. He felt a kinship to it, a tool just like billions of others exactly like it, and yet it felt special in his hand, just like he hoped she felt about him in hers. He smiled under his muzzle and tightly held it to his chest. He thanked her for the gift and then entered the festival. He looked around, and everything was wrong. The colors, the sounds, the people, painting themselves, dressing in disturbing garb. One of them dared to walk right up to him and touch his chest. Owen's heart raced with rage. The vile thing even dared to mock his muzzle, calling it a nice mask. The insolence. Owen brought his crowbar justly into its face and pushed it aside as it convulsed and died. The rest of the vile pests froze. Some screamed while others yelled at him. It was so annoying. Like raising their voice would somehow affect him. He wondered if they fancied themselves as wizards, if they believed their words would magically put him in check. A laughable notion. He was the exception. He was pure. He was clean. Nothing could bind or restrain him. Aside from her, of course. He rushed forward. Each swing of his tool sent another one crumbling to the ground. The crowbar wasn't sharp, so he needed to apply great force. He felt his muscles straining underneath his skin. How many had he brought low? Maybe a dozen. 2, perhaps. It didn't matter. There were more. Always more. A swarm of filth. He felt sore, and his breath became labored. But then, it all started to fade. A supportive numbness drifted over him, and he was ready again. So the violence resumed. Some of them tried to fight back. In a way, he almost respected these ones. At least they were trying to be proactive. He liked the fighters better than the yellers. One of the yelling fools dared to call him a bigot. The nerve. Anger flared in his chest. He felt it burn. The fool was acting tough, standing in front of a bus, spitting slurs at him. Owen looked down at his crowbar. No, not for this one. Irrelevant as it was, this one needed to be made into an example. So he put the crowbar on his belt and walked towards the bus. It really thought that all of this, his training, his dedication, his pain, was for some grudge with their religion. That he would do all of this for something as petty as a human emotion like hatred. He was shaking. His was a higher calling. The highest calling. He wasn't afraid of these worthless things. He found them disgusting. He didn't hate them. He loved the truth. He couldn't care less about their stupid, cynical old bastards. Damn the politicians. Damn the hollow, lying 24/7 talking heads. Damn their self-gratifying religions. Damn everyone! Until the world is clean again. Clean enough for her to return. To be the cure. To burn out this cancer, even if it kills the host. He reached down and grabbed the edge of the bus. He felt his muscles straining. His whole body cried out as he rose and lifted the bus up over his head. Then he tipped it forward, right towards his accuser. The thing that insulted him stupidly stood there and watched as it toppled over and crushed him flat, while the people inside the bus were tossed around like toys, and Owen fell to his knees. Everything was ripped. His muscles bulged out of place. Pain like nothing he could describe rippled through his body. He wanted to scream, but so many muscles didn't work anymore. He couldn't even see straight. His whole body was out of commission. Tears welled up in his eyes as he heard people shouting at him to lay on the ground and put his hands on his head. No, it couldn't be over. This couldn't be all that he had trained for, worked for. To just crash into a wall now? There was still so much work to be done. He just needed more. More time, more power, more everything. And suddenly he felt it again. The numbness. A chilling inner peace. His skin crawled as muscles slipped back into place, and breath rushed into his lungs. He stood and flexed his restored muscles, then turned to face his new attackers. Humans with cars that flashed hypnotic lights, armed with guns. He smiled at them, rushing into danger to save people who certainly didn't deserve it. He almost admired their dedication, even if it was foolish. He nodded to them, accepting that it had to be this way. He started running towards them, and they opened fire. Owen stopped and boldly stuck his chest out. Bullet after bullet hit him. He felt each and every one of them, but he was stronger than the pain. And slowly they stopped, staring at him in horror as he allowed himself the slight misbehavior of smirking at them, while painfully his body rejected the bullets. Each one was pushed out as the wounds slowly closed. This was his blessing and penance, frozen in a perfect state, no longer changing, no longer subject to chance or possibility. Perfect. The best body he could ever become, resetting to the perfect point, regardless of the pain required. He picked up the crowbar again and resumed the bloody work. Come the next day, news of the Chorchillo massacre flooded media. Owen himself was never identified or located. He left quietly as soon as he ran out of lives to end, walking off into the night as grief and confusion spread like wildfire, to wait for his next activation, to dissect this new world and its religions, in the name of truth, in the name of purity, in the name of Olkiza.
It's always nice getting to run into old acquaintances, isn't it? Personally, I think that Owen's life is going in a good direction. And I'm sure he's happy with it as well. Not that his happiness really matters at this point, I suppose. In any case, donect itorum conveniens.
Nice mask,